What's up, everybody? South Shore Disc Golf back again with part one of the How to Throw series. And I say part one, normally my videos are pretty long. I tried to do this all as one video, and it was 65 minutes long. So I figured for my sake and for yours, I'd break it into its constituent parts. So what I'm going to be covering in this series is how to throw, but not just not the mechanics of it, like some of my other videos, but more the specific shots, and I guess the mechanics within those shots. How to throw a hyzer, how to throw an anhyzer, how to throw flat, how to throw a roller. So that's what this series is going to cover. Alright, so before we cover the first part, which is going to be straight and flat, I want to go over something that a lot of beginners and a lot of people in general who start out don't really understand because it was never explained to them, or they just didn't have the sort of intuitive knowledge to do it the correct way, and that is grip. So if you ask, we'll start with backhand, and if you ask any pro, pretty much, if they're trying to throw for distance, well, a backhand shot, it is going to be with a 4-finger power grip. And now you can kind of like sort of spread them out a little bit like that, but most 4-finger power grips are the same in that you have the pads of your finger on the rim of the disc, your fingers curled around, and your thumb is on the top, either flat or up like this, as some people do, but it's right where the flight plate meets the rim of the disc. So, right there. And now I've seen some people who will have their palm flat like that, and I've seen some people who will sort of leave it up so that they sort of have a little more rip to it, and I prefer actually to lift my palm up a little bit so I don't have that extra sort of grip lock threat or anything sort of slowing down the disc from ripping out of my hand. So that's 4-finger power grip. It's pretty easy. Really just grab it. And there's some other variations of that. There's the 3-finger power grip, which some people prefer for accuracy, but just feels weird to me. Also a 2-finger power grip, but really only use that if for some reason you have kind of like your hand is messed up or something and you can't get all your fingers around it. So that pretty much covers power grips. If some people will throw their drivers with a fan grip, which is what we're going to cover next. I personally do not, but all my putters and mid-ranges, I throw with fan grips. And the term fan grip is sort of covers a wide variety of different grips, because one person's fan grip can be very different. So this one is called the Climo grip, and if you YouTube that, there's this really shitty old YouTube video of Ken Climo explaining how to do it, and that's where I found it. But the way I do it is I basically just put the disc right on the lifeline on my palm and just wrap my fingers around it. And you see, it's similar to a power grip, except my fingers aren't curled. There's really the only difference, is that the pads of my fingers are now, instead of being on the rim, are on the flight plate. And for me, sometimes I'll like tuck my pinky back and it'll be on the rim, but that doesn't really affect it that much. For me, it gives me a little bit of a better grip on it, because I don't have to, because with the drivers, when you're gripping a driver, obviously since the rim is wider, your fingers don't have to curl as much to get a grip. When you're throwing a mid-range or a putter, since the rim is not as thick, you have to curl your fingers more, which can be uncomfortable for some people like me. So I like just wrapping it around, holding it like that. Thumb is usually right about the same spot would be for a power grip. So I throw my mids like that, and I throw my putters like that. And I also feel that it takes a little juice off my throw. And when you're throwing putters and mid-ranges, you really don't have to be throwing 100%. So I don't sacrifice a lot of power and feel like I gain a significant amount of accuracy personally. As for other fan grips I've seen people who will sort of have like one like this. I've also seen power grips like that. I would not advise that, but seen fan grips like that. I've seen fan grips that are sort of like one index finger on the rim, and then your other fingers are sort of fanned. I've seen like sort of spread out fan grips like that. It's in the end, when you're trying to figure out what grip is best for you for control, that sort of just becomes whatever is comfortable for you, as long as it's not clearly hurting your distance or accuracy. Then no one can tell you're doing something wrong. So I think that pretty much covers it for backhand grips. Moving on to forehand grips. Grab it. This is the mascot for South Shore Disc Golf. This is Bottom Stamp Destroyer, and he's awesome. So for forehand grips, I prefer just the regular 2-finger stack. I feel like it is the perfect compromise of power and control when using a forehand. It's also how you forehand ultimate discs, so that kind of just came naturally for me. Oof, that burrito is not. Oof. But some people will use the power grip, which is just you take a 2-finger stack and move your middle finger back, tucked under, or your index finger back, tucked under your middle finger with the pad of your index finger on the rim. So like that, kind of like you're making a pistol or something with your hand, except not really. So some people will throw with a 1-finger flick. Some people prefer the split flick. 1-finger and split grip are more for control. Like I know some people will throw their putters with 1 finger, but I grip if I'm throwing a forehand, it's always the same grip. It's always 2 fingers under the rim, and then if I'm throwing a putter, I can just flick my wrist. I don't have to worry about a reach back or anything like that. Just flick it, and that's enough control for me. So experiment with those. Find out which one works best for you for throwing, in terms of being comfortable holding the disc, which is important, but also maximizing your accuracy without losing too much power. So that pretty much covers it for grip. Now on to what this video is actually about. So the first shot that anyone who plays disc golf should learn to do is how to throw straight and flat. And that's sort of something that a lot of people miss, because they start off with a boss or something like that, and they assume the discs don't even go straight. So they don't even know that you can just put a disc out 300, 200, 300 feet just straight. And that sort of leads to the unnatural progression of, okay, instead of throwing flat, I'll throw this on an Annie and let it flex and ruin my disc golf game. So if you're a beginner or someone who's looking to work on their form, the best possible thing to do is find a disc that is neutral in flight and will show your form flaws. And that is the best disc to use for some of the things that I'm going to describe in the rest of this video. Some good discs for that. My personal favorite, and I think the disc that is the best for learning form, in terms of clean form, not necessarily learning how to throw far, but to learn clean form, go with the Innova Nova. It's their overmolded putter, and it is the touchiest disc ever made. If you throw that thing with even a little bit of the wrong angle, it's going that way. It is never coming back. But if you throw that thing straight and flat, it'll go 300 feet without fading. Just be dead straight. And if you can throw that disc, even just 200, 250 feet, not everybody's palming back. 200, 250 feet, straight as an arrow with a Nova, then your form is pretty clean. And if you can go and do that right now, then awesome. You've got a very good foundation to build on. And that's what you're trying to do with that form work, is you can't build a castle on sand. So, other good discs, the Comet from Discraft is very good. Really just any straight, neutral mid-range. Not something super understable, because you don't want stuff flipping on you or turning right when you throw straight. You just want something that if you throw straight, it's going to go straight. And the Comet and the Nova are probably the 2 best picks for that. And on a quick note is that you don't have to throw things hard to get them to go straight. You just have to throw them right. And that's what I'm going to get into now. So, let's go with a putter here. the biggest thing to get discs, especially slower discs like putters, to go straight and flat and far is keeping your follow through in the angle of your throw. What I mean by that is that if I'm lined up, say this is just the tee box or a field and I'm at a standstill, I'm not doing a run up or anything. If I line up my throw and I say I'm holding the disc back flat, it's flat, you know, whatever. It's flat, and I come through, and I'm here. Disc is flat, my elbow's out, everything right here, everything's good. Everything looks great. All of a sudden, and then I follow through, and I follow through like that. Instead of coming out and straight, I followed through and I turned and I dipped my shoulder and my elbow and I followed through down. Then instead of going straight, that disc is going to burn out. And it leads to frustration for people because they think, oh, I have to throw this very overstable disc. When in reality, it is the archer and not the arrow. Some other sort of mistakes is that if you're rounding, a lot of the times it can cause your follow through to be bad. Because when you reach back, in order to come through, you have to come up and around. So that kind of naturally leads you to follow through on an anhyzer. So what you want to do is make sure that your pull through is clean and flat with no rounding, and that you follow through straight. So your follow through should be exactly in the plane, and this will go for every shot that I do in this series. Straight and flat and follow through. Because if you want a disc to go straight, you have to follow through flat and straight. Biggest thing. Second thing is that especially when throwing putters, you don't have to throw them hard. I can throw a putter, I mean, anyone who has good clean form can throw a putter really without even trying 200 feet. Without even using any sort of hip mechanic that I've covered in my other video, just with an arm, just a gentle arm. They're easy to throw. And they're easier to throw than a lot of people think. So, another quick thing, if you are doing a run-up and you want to throw flat and straight, make sure that you are just in the middle of the tee box, your shoulders lined up to your target, and go flat and straight. I've seen some people, they'll set up like in the back over here, or in the back over here, and sort of try and step to the middle, and then throw. You want to work with how your body works, always. Because if you're trying to fight the mechanics of your body, the throw is not going to go well. So it seems this video is going to cover covering a lot of easy stuff, but it's stuff that a lot of people miss. So my shoulders are lined up to my target. I'm ready. I'm doing whatever my warm up is. And then line up straight, step, cross, follow through straight. It's the biggest thing. I cannot stress that enough, is that if your follow through is not straight, that disc is not going to go straight. And that's just how it is. So, lesson plan. Alright, we covered good discs, we covered all that stuff. Okay, so one thing that I was asked to cover is throwing straight, up, or downhill. So I'll go over this real quick. And one of the tricky things about throwing up and downhill is that you also have to maintain your nose angle of your disc. And what I mean by that is that, not necessarily with putters, but especially with drivers, is that I read somewhere, and I could be pulling this out of my ass, but I think it was in an article on DDCR, that the optimal release angle for a disc is actually 4 degrees tilted down. Because discs are airfoils, basically. And just like when an airplane wing creates a lift by the air going over the disc faster than the air going under the disc, if you never give it the opportunity to create that lift, it's never going to go anywhere. Which is why when you throw nose up, all the air is just going straight onto the bottom of the flight plate, and the disc is just going to shoot up in the air. So you actually want to be releasing slightly nose down. And something that helps people sometimes to do this was in a Will Schuster clinic, is that sort of hold the disc out and then point your thumb down. Just keep the angle of your wrist, and when you look down, you should not be able to see your thumb. And if you can keep that release angle for when you actually release the disc, your disc will come out nose down. And this is different than trying to throw downward. This is releasing either at any angle with the nose down. Okay, so to cover going uphill first, you want to, again, follow the mechanics of your body. And you have to know that whatever you do on one side of your pull-through is going to be mirrored on the other side of your body. So when you want to release up, to throw up, you have to reach back, down. And now this is sort of touchy, depending on how steep of a hill you're throwing up. If it's just a mild hill, it could be as simple as taking your retractor, instead of being here, have it be here. And then when you come through, you're mirrored, and the disc is going up. If you're throwing up a very, very steep hill, it can even go to a point where you're reaching all the way back here, up. So basically what you want to do is you can still maintain that nose down angle, but in this case you actually want to sort of let that back up a little bit, because when you're throwing up, you actually do want the disc to go up. Now you don't want the disc to shoot up and stall, so don't throw it like that, but also don't throw it quite as nose down as you normally would, especially if you're trying to cover a really, really steep hill. And now throwing downhill is a little bit trickier because you really can't throw up at all, because then you're just going to stall out and it's going to hurt you. One thing that helps me when I'm throwing gentle downhill shots, such as hole 4 at Maple Hill, is that I will actually, normally your knees should be bent during your drive, being in like an athletic stance. I'll crouch much lower, especially if it's a very short shot. Do my run up very low and sort of release even lower. Now that for me is kind of a way of cheating my way to not shooting up as much, but that works for me. Another thing you can do is just do your regular pull through, and like I said, I'll do it this way, mirror it. Up, down. Now, if you're throwing down like a very far, very steep hill, you don't want to throw straight down. You just want to make sure that your pull through is below what your normal one would be, because if you just throw normally, it's just going to sail. So, and going downhill, this will pick up a lot of speed, so you can take some off of it and not throw full force. Reach back, up, and throw slightly down. And that is sort of a quick summary, is throwing with elevation. Also, generally, when going uphill, you want to throw a more understable disc, because overstable discs will tend to fade out even sooner due to be throwing slightly nose up. And when you're going downhill, you want to use a more overstable disc, because when discs are traveling at that speed downhill and picking up speed and not landing, understable disc will flip even more. So you want to throw something overstable to make sure that it stays straight and fades out. If that's the shot you want. You know, if you want something to go right, by all means, throw something understable. But keep in mind, it's going to act even more understable than it normally would. Alright, so I think that pretty much covers everything I want to do in this video. And stay tuned for part 2, which will be hyzers, which will be the cool part of the video series. So, alright, thanks for watching, guys.